So our speaker today, Linda López-George, she's the Director of Research Partnership and Business Development, excuse me. And she's out of UT Health San Antonio. Linda leads the strategy for internal and external stakeholder engagement with the institution's research enterprise for the Office of the Vice President for Research. Prior to her career transition to research administration, Ms. López-George held leadership roles in higher education advancement offices at both private and public universities. Her passion for public service and civil engagement currently includes appointment to the City Bond Oversight Commission, charged with quarterly review and annual report to the City Council of the 2017 bond program. And I want to tell you a little personal story about how I met Linda. We were actually at a symposium at the Capitol in Austin, and we broke for lunch, and we were in these round tables. There were maybe about 8 people per table, and I happened to be blessed with sitting next to Linda. And I have to tell you that within the first 5 minutes, not only had she spoken to every single person at that table, but she got the business cards from every single person at the table. I was in awe. She made it look so easy, so fluid. I just thought to myself, wow, I want to be just like Linda when I grow up. So I'm now going to pass it off to Linda because I think she's amazing, and I know you're going to really appreciate everything she has to share with you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And Victoria?
Well, thank you, Tammy, for that very warm introduction and that personal anecdote of how we met. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I guess it's been at least a couple of years since we were there at, I think it was for Texas Healthcare and Bioscience Institute's summit. And so, as I was asked to speak about building social networks to land your next job, I know that was a title that we provided, and as I've reflected further, I kind of just want to say that really when you're building social networks, it should just be because you want to build social networks. If you approach it from that aspect of just a give and take relationship without that goal that, oh, I'm looking at you because you're going to help me get a job, you will come across more genuine and authentic and make that person that you are interacting with feel like it's not a transactional relationship. And that's what's the key about building networks. You want to convey that you genuinely care about the person that you're interacting with, and not that you are there just simply to see what you can get from them as opposed to what you're going to give them as well in that relationship. Next, please. So let me speak a little bit about my professional journey on LinkedIn. I was not a social media savvy person at all. I believe I started my LinkedIn profile probably somewhere in the maybe 2010, in that time period. Simply created a very basic profile and just parked it in the LinkedIn platform. Didn't engage at all. And as Tammy mentioned in terms of presenting, my career shifted. I had been spending 3 decades, if you will, in what I call the fundraising world of philanthropy. That is not my background. I'm a government major from UT Austin, both undergrad and master's, but I entered into the career of a philanthropy early in my career. And I had the opportunity to transition to research in 2015 and work with the Vice President for Research. And one thing that I have always enjoyed, and that is being a lifelong learner, and also being always kind of reading what's happening in my community, in my state, and in my country. And I guess maybe that's that government background. And so I have always felt strongly that to stay connected to what is happening in your ecosystem, you do have to read what is happening in that ecosystem and not just allow people to tell you about it, but you've got to read about it yourself and form your own conclusions and judgments about what is happening. So I started reading that social media was, I guess, on the heels of presidential election, where Twitter became the social media platform in which much discussion was happening. And so I started looking and researching that as a way perhaps to message what was happening at UT Health San Antonio in terms of the research environment. And so I spent a lot of time researching as well as updating my profile when I learned that, my profile was not a very good one. The photo should be, better, more professional, although I did have a professional photo, but it wasn't a crisp photo. And just reading blogs and webinars. And that's kind of how I always approach anything I try to do is learning as much as I can by researching and listening. So when I started, I had under 400 connections, and today I have 3,725, and it grows, most likely after a presentation or after I comment about something. If I'm not connected to that person, they'll ask to connect with me, or I will ask them to connect with me. So examples of individuals that I feel kind of resonate with the audience that I believe is listening in is Catherine Cheng is someone who actually was a postdoc. She was a graduate student. She's working right now still at the Health Science Center in a research associate capacity, but she was trying to get her foot in the door in terms of building her career about what is going to happen after she gets her PhD. And so we happened to have a conversation, and I suggested to her that she should embrace LinkedIn. And specifically, she wrote an article that appeared in Pipette Gazette, which is a graduate school electronic newsletter. And I said, why don't you consider putting that article that you wrote and putting it on LinkedIn? So build your portfolio, if you will, and let people on LinkedIn know what you're doing as a graduate student. And in that way, you're also then, like I said, building your network in a very organic, very professional way. Patricia Ruggio was someone else that was a postdoc fellow at the Health Science Center, left to take a position with a local biotech company in San Antonio, reached out through me through LinkedIn and said, I'm moving now, my family and I are moving to Salt Lake City. Can you help me connect? And she was very specific. She had done her homework. She had identified companies in the Salt Lake City that I was connected with, and asked if I would connect her with those individuals. So I was happy to do that. So again, it's looking at LinkedIn as a way to connect with individuals who perhaps are not in your sphere yet, but through someone that you've developed a relationship with might assist you in making that connection. The Health Cell event was held in February this past year. I sit on that board, and the Health Science Center is a sponsor of that event. Actually, the programming throughout the year is what that sponsorship allows. But one of the things that I sought is to bring in students into that event. And our graduate students is primarily what we have at the Health Science Center. Many are very interested in connecting in the community. So rather than just giving them a free meal and then them having sit in a round table, I said, why don't you all, since you're so media savvy, social media savvy, why don't you help the board? That's all volunteers. We don't have, boots on the ground with staff. Why don't you help us by being the people downstairs who greets people and ask them as they're coming in if they wouldn't mind getting a photo shot of them attending the health cell and posting it on Twitter and Instagram, and that the health cell has those social media platforms. They were excited because that kind of gave them an opportunity to kind of reach out to people in a very with a job, if you will, as opposed to just having to say, hey, I'm so and so. And so that went very well. And so that's a way that you can help if you're in a position like I am to help students or postdocs, that you can help them kind of break that ice, because it can be intimidating. There are some people, and we'll see that in the YouTube that we'll watch, that are introverts, and for them it is very difficult to actually meet people that they don't know. It makes them feel very uncomfortable. You know, they're hoping that their antiperspirant is going to work overtime, etc. Next, please. So now, just a quick poll here, just to kind of see that you haven't fallen asleep or left to go get a hamburger. So if you would, you can hold your camera to the QR code, and it should take you into the Slido and to do this poll on, do you use LinkedIn? If for some reason you're not able to, please feel free to use the chat box and indicate which one of these is where you are currently in your use of LinkedIn. I'll give you, let's take a minute for that.
And just a quick note, this is Victoria. If the QR code isn't working, you can go to tiny.cc /LL poll 4.
So we're getting some responses through the chat group. Very good. One person said low engagement. Another one said higher, LinkedIn use weekly. Great. You should be able to offer us some tips of how your engagement is going. Regularly. Regularly. Good. Okay, time's up here. So next, Karina. I'm sorry, Victoria. So just as an example of, you know, kind of the way I use LinkedIn, in preparing for this, I did homework, I did research, and so I went to the YouTube and I did a search, and I wanted to listen to any TED Talks that might have been on the topic of networking and COVID-19. And one of the presenters that resonated with me was Rick. And I guess it was because I saw that he was a co-founder and manager of the Portland Incubator Experiment. So that intrigued me, because Capital City Innovation is all about innovation. And I believe I felt that that's what Portland Incubator Experiment was going to be about. And it is. So I reached out to Rick, and this is what I said to him. Hi, Rick. I feel like I won the Golden Walnut when I selected your TEDx talk for a virtual presentation. In our COVID-19 world, do you have any new thoughts on connecting via a coffee meetup? So I sent that to him at 10:54 in the morning last week, and he responded by 11:02 a.m. Linda, thanks so much for reaching out. And he actually wrote a little bit more. But that, in essence, tells you that LinkedIn does work. Now, it could be that he saw my profile, but let's watch the video, and you might be able to then see why what's in parentheses is how I chose to approach it. Next.
All right, let me go ahead and switch over to the video now, Linda.
Okay, thank you, Victoria.
Just a moment.
And I'm so glad Victoria's doing this, because my biggest fear when I present, even when I'm in just teams with my small team at the Health Science Center, is the shared screen and going back and forth. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm learning all this technology. Don't worry about it, Victoria. I watched it a couple of times, so I can kind of summarize what the gist of it is. But the Golden Walnut that I put in quotations when I approached him, if you have an opportunity after after the presentation to go and listen to him. I highly recommend it. But he described how when he was a child, he actually was so introverted that he had a tent that he would go, and it was a golden walnut he described it as though it was going to be a friend. That's kind of the impression I got, that it was going to be a friend. And the friend was a golden walnut. In other words, he was so introverted. That inanimate object was his friend. So as he continues in his video, he talks about how he has taken, even though being an introvert, how he, as I was saying, if you approach it from the angle of, what do I know? How can I help someone? What is it about what I have learned about an individual that might be useful to another individual? So if you go back, Victoria, maybe to the slide where I had the 4 little bullets related to the video.
Oh, can you see that? Oh, okay, I see. Sharing is.
Yeah, go back to the slide and we'll leave the YouTube video screen.
Great. Give me just a moment. Having some technical difficulties.
That's okay. I think we all have patience for that. So what he was trying to do was describe 1 cup of coffee at a time. And what he felt meetings provide are opportunities to collect dots, to reflect on the dots, to apply common sense, and to connect the dots to help others. And I think that when I get to the slide about the 7 characteristics of a great networker, this will resonate even more with you about collect dots, reflect on the dots, apply common sense, and connect the dots to help others. Next slide. So one exercise that you may want to do is look at your own network currently. Basically, we have maybe 3 buckets for our networks. We have operational. These are people who can help us get our work done. In my work at the Health Science Center, I can identify people who I need to work with. They're in my network because in order for me to get my job done, I need to interact with them. I need to network with them. Then you have your personal. These are people that are not in your professional sphere. These are people that on a personal level could be your father. It could be a faculty member. It could be someone that you trust and is able to kind of give you some, as a sounding board, some direction, some feedback, some input on questions that you may have. And then you have your strategic network of folks. And in this strategic, these are people who will help you shape your future goals. These are people perhaps that you admire, that you feel like where they're at this point in their life is kind of where your aspirational goals are. And so you're going to try to put them in your network so they can tell you what might be some steps you need to be taking to get to that point like they are at currently. Next slide. So now that we go into the breakout room, and Victoria and myself and Tammy, depending on how many people have actually joined, we will break out into anywhere from 15 to 20 individuals. I'm going to ask you to go to your LinkedIn, and it looks from looking at the chat that there are some of you who are regular and who are, feel that you're on the higher spectrum. And Victoria, on the poll, do you have a sense of where we were? It should have been able to have shown us where we visually where people stood.
Yes, let me check and see.
When I added mine, we were at 64% use it regularly.
Okay. So 64% are using it regularly. That is awesome. That is great. So this exercise should be fairly easy. So what I would ask is that when we go into these breakout rooms, you can do 2 things. You can either scroll through your LinkedIn feed and comment on a post, or you can send a message to a connection. It could be someone, anybody that you are connected with. And then maybe among yourselves in that breakout room, dialogue about what it is that you're commenting on, what is it that resonates with you. Are you connected perhaps to the people in that breakout room? If you're not, perhaps ask if you can connect with them. So always when you're sending a message, if you really want to distinguish yourself, don't just do the connect. Send a message that kind of ties it back. So let's get into the breakout rooms and we can visit a little bit more about this. Keep in mind what I said about connect the dots, reflect on those dots, and then try to see if you can connect with someone in that way.
All right, and I am going to put us in the breakout rooms. Oh gosh, sorry. Oh goodness.
How many total are we right now, Victoria?
We're at 26. It does look like we had some folks drop off as soon as we mentioned breakout rooms and connecting
Oh
with
my
others.
goodness. I'm already stressing people.
Yes, and actually, again, I apologize. I'm noticing earlier I had the breakout room options, and now I'm not seeing that for some reason.
Okay, let's not get worried and hung up about that. In the interest of time, why don't we just stay all together in one big room? And if we can maybe all take on this assignment, and then maybe anybody who feels comfortable, we can open it up to providing some feedback to the group about, or sharing with why you selected that particular post to comment on. Is that something that you've been following, commenting frequently on already? Or a connection that you might, maybe it's a new one, or maybe it's one that you had kind of let lapse for a while and now you're reaching out.
Hey, Linda, do you want everybody to unmute at this point so that they can talk to you?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe put your video on too if you'd like.
All right.
Is anybody ready to share what they might have just done right now on LinkedIn?
I just made a connection with someone in the group.
Oh, good, Lisa. Has that person accepted?
They reached out to me. It was Matt up at Cornell.
Oh, okay.
Who's on this call, which is cool.
Matt is making the most of it right now.
Oh, good old Matt. Look at this.
There we go.
I
Well, Matt,
congratulated
just to let you know,
somebody.
I'm a New Yorker and my daughter went to Cornell, so I might be a good person for you to connect with.
If someone doesn't mind, I'm going to call out, but you can definitely say no, thank you. Adam Howard.
Hello, well, I have never used LinkedIn, so I'm making an account at the moment.
Okay, all right. Well,
There you go, Adam.
Everybody linked to Adam.
yes. Anybody else that wants to share what activity they pursued right now on LinkedIn?
I just sent a connection to Matt. Let's see if he accepts me.
Okay.
I will see.
I congratulated somebody for a new role they started.
Great. Is that something that you do frequently? Is congratulate people when it pops up on your account that someone has changed their position or been promoted?
Yeah, or even work anniversaries. I feel like it's a way to connect, especially if I
Mhm.
used to work with them, if I know them, of course, kind of. And also, if somebody leaves my organization, I didn't get to say goodbye, it's always like a really great place to kind of wish them well and
Mhm.
congratulate them on the new role. So
Right.
I actually connected with Mateo and Alex, the ones that sent their LinkedIn profiles, and Alex and I have started a little bit of dialogue.
Good. Good. Well, let's go on then to the next slide.
Let me go ahead and share again.
Okay.
Verena figured out our issues. I assigned her as a host, so I lost the ability to break out folks.
Ah, okay.
My apologies for not catching on to that quickly enough.
No worries. No worries. Okay, so one of the things that if we can do this poll, words that define networking for you. If you would just, this is going to be a word cloud. So and you can do more than one. So any words that define networking for you.
And again here, it's tinycc/LL poll 2.
And if that doesn't work for you, feel free to use the chat box and we will be able to look at that. I don't want anybody leaving because Slido is stressing them out. For the monitor, Tammy, how is that looking?
Hold on for a second.
Okay.
I'm just going to send mine.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got someone put getting to know someone, hard work, connecting, learning, socializing, reaching out, people.
Okay. I'm gonna give everybody 25 more seconds if they want to add some more words to that.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool little word cloud app.
Yeah, it is. Stressing but rewarding. Helping out. Meaningful connection.
Okay.
Making friends.
Okay. Technically, when I've seen this in a Slido presentation, we in the room can be looking at it at the same time. I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay.
Let me go ahead. Okay, let me share my screen.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So as we all know, your connecting and community are probably the strongest. That's why they're more prominent in this word cloud. So hard work, learning, making friends, people helping out, social media, talking, getting to know someone, meaningful connection, and stressful but rewarding. Okay. I think those are all good definitions of what networking can be. So let's go to the next one. So here are 7 characteristics that appear in an article in entrepreneur.com of a great networker. And the number one thing that I feel like I've started sharing with you at the very beginning is you've got to be a good listener. And it cannot be a transactional relationship that you're trying to build. So listening is very important. Positive attitude. We all know that it's much easier to connect with people and stay connected with people when they have a positive attitude. And I know that right now, for many of us, we are struggling with the situation with COVID-19. I mean, it has really changed the dynamics of even our social world, you know. So the downtime that we used to have away from the office is no longer, you know, going out to restaurants, going out to get a drink, you know, all of those that used to actually be sort of a way that we could relax and engage with other people in a more social way, are not there. And so that may create perhaps a potential for us not to feel so positive. But we have to remember that nobody wants to be around someone that is not positive. So always try to figure out, you know, where you are in terms of your space so that you always project a positive attitude. Help others and be collaborative. And that goes whether you're a student, whether you're an employee, already in the career world, whether you are in an organization. People like to help other people. It comes back to you. You know, when you help others, they will remember and they will help you as well. So always approach it in that respect. Be sincere and be authentic, you know, and people are very smart. They can always smell when it's somebody that's just reached out to them because, and if you're active on LinkedIn, you have probably had those where someone just reaches out to you, wants to connect, and then the next thing you know, they're trying to get you to consider something that they're selling, you know. And to me, you know, I say, no, thank you, you know. Follow up. I think if there's anything from my career in philanthropy to today that I really always feel is so important is your follow-up. You know, if you say you're going to do something, then do it. Because then that builds that trust that gets us into the sixth characteristic, which is being trustworthy. If people can't rely that you're going to follow up, then they're not going to build trust in you. So even if it doesn't work out, if what you promised or what you said you can do, you can't meet that timeline, then at least just get back to the person and said, you know, something's come up, I can't meet the timeline I promised, but give me another week or give me 10 days or, you know, give them feedback. Don't just sort of fall off the radar. Be approachable. Again, that kind of goes with the positive attitude. You know, if people always feel like you're ready to shut them down, then you're not projecting an approachable personality of someone that they want to engage with. And I think in LinkedIn, because it is a professional network, we may struggle a little bit about, you know, how much is approachable and how much maybe you're already passing the line of professionalism. But I think if you are active in LinkedIn and you have some people that you really like the way they post and stuff, then you can then model the way you post by those people that you kind of feel are good mentors, if you will, in LinkedIn for you. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I did a lot of homework. I mean, I presented on LinkedIn before, but this one had a nuance to it that was a bit different in terms of, you know, landing your jobs, that potential your next job through LinkedIn or through social media. And what I have posted here is, first of all, make sure your LinkedIn profile is basically what is now expected on LinkedIn. And there's a number of resources there that I provided for you that gets you to kind of look and listen to what is some tips that will help you to craft that profile. If you want to, I'm open to anytime you want to send me your profile and say, hey, you know, do you have any suggestions? Do you have any tips? Feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than willing to look at your profile. I'm not an expert, but I can definitely maybe share with you what might be some things that you might want to consider. The other person that I thought was a very engaging person, and that's a professor that I came across on TED Talk, and that's Dr. Menon at Ohio State University. What I liked about her TED Talk presentation, it was sort of, it was a bit scientific, based on actual data that she has compiled with her colleagues related to networking and connecting with people. And then she also had some very good articles, reading articles and books that could be helpful in terms of how you approach networking. And then the last one that I thought perhaps with a younger audience, than myself, this particular individual is actually Chai and Coaching is his company. He's actually a petroleum engineer who graduated, I believe it was out of Oklahoma, but he actually lives in the Plano, Texas area, and he has actually started this company. And you can really resonate with him, or at least he does for me, because he approaches it in the way that I believe networking you can be successful. And that is that it is a give and take relationship. It's about helping someone first before you're asking them to help you. And so I would encourage you to listen to his YouTube. It's particularly helpful for international students because he has a proclivity toward the international students from his experience having lived in India with his wife and 2 children. So they were there for a number of years. And so he really understands how moving from one country to another can be very jarring. The culture, particularly as a graduate student or a postdoc student or just someone who's come over for pursuing a career. And so I think that he would be very helpful for anyone who is an international student, who is a postdoc that's here on an F1 or some of those other visa type arrangements. Next, please. So questions. I welcome any questions that anyone may have. I believe we've got some time. We're scheduled to go off at 1 o'clock. I have 12:51. Several questions were sent in ahead of time, and I've asked Victoria to go through those questions, and if there's any that I have not yet covered in any detail, I'd be happy to. I actually wrote answers to those questions, and I'm happy to share those with the board, and they can decide if they want to post them as part of the video that has been will be available online after we get done. So that if you don't want to ask your question now, I have answered questions that came in yesterday. Victoria?
Yeah, I don't think we got any new questions in the chat. I know Nancy was helping to monitor too, but we can look at the questions that we got previously if you'd like.
Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question, Linda?
Yes, Tammy.
How often do you check your LinkedIn? Do you do it daily? Do you do it weekly? Do you actually set aside time in your calendar every day to use social media?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. A part of my role within the Health Science Center has that expectation that I'm going to be messaging information that's coming out of the university in the research space. So for me, it's a daily, it's a daily activity. Now, I confess that when I'm watching TV, shows at night, I multitask. So I'm listening and watching, but I'm also going through my feed. And so I will, a lot of times I may not be actually responding when I'm actually watching TV, but I will be saving articles or sending them to my email so that the next day I can do something meaningful with that. Because I'll, that's the way it prompts me.
How much time would you say you spend daily?
I would probably say it's under an hour. It's under 60 minutes that I spend.
We have one question in the chat too. Is it okay or recommended to connect to people that you don't know?
Yes, the example I gave you, I didn't know him, but I listened to something, so you kind of have to do a little research sometimes if you want it to be a meaningful connection. So if you want it to be a meaningful connection, look at their profile, look what they wrote, and see why you want to connect with them. And when you write that personal message, that personal invite, note that so that they know why you're reaching out to them. Again, Don't reach out to them and say, oh, I see you work at Apple and I just applied for a position there. You know, can you help me? No, you know, so that's why it's important. If you feel like in your future, you might have a positions that you want to pursue at Apple, then I would suggest that now you start looking at those employers out there that you feel you might be looking for positions there, internships, fellowships, whatever, and start connecting with people who are already connected there so that they can start being part of your network as opposed to just, you know, blasting them when you've already sent something. Another thing that one of the questions from yesterday was, how as a student can I start networking, or what should professors tell their students about how to network? And what I suggest is that as an educator, you should always encourage your students to have a professional profile. And that helps them because if you tell them, they most likely will listen. And if they don't, then I suggest always, you may want to go visit the career development, you know, services office, or connect with them and start building that network, because employers will, by definition, they will go to the career services office of an institution. That's where they will post positions. That's where they're going to start. So I would suggest that you try to stay connected as a freshman throughout graduate school. Stay connected with that office because they are going to be the hub of resources for you. They will also be the ones who provide workshops related to, you know, how to pursue, you know, careers in this field, in that field. Another thing that you might want to also suggest to your students is when they go to conferences, yes, pick up a business card, but look and see if they have a LinkedIn account and then try to connect with them that way. You know, and that way you've already, and if you listen to somebody at a conference, they gave a presentation, personalize it always. Say, I really enjoyed your presentation. I learned X, you know, and that way they then say, oh, they were in the audience, they heard me. Now you say, well, right now we're in COVID, we're not going to conferences. There's so many right now that are being done virtually. And because there's less cost, a lot of these are free now. So you can participate in webinars before cost. Since we're in this innovation space, if you go to Johnson & Johnson labs out of Houston, they are putting webinars, and you can go to any of those webinars. And when you listen to those presenters, if there's something that really caught your attention, most of these people have LinkedIn accounts. Send them an email. That's how you build your network. So those are things that I would suggest to faculty is, you know, share that information with your students, because it's too late once they're already, you know, the last semester of college or last, you know, semester of grad school, and now they're trying to find a job. Well, no, everything that they've done throughout their career, if they wrote articles, if they published, if they presented, if they won an award, all of that should be something that they should be messaging, not just putting it on their profile, but saying, oh, today I was so delighted, you know, I was honored, whatever resonates, whatever vernacular is that person's comfort zone, and share that with people.
Thank you, Linda. And I know we do have 2 more questions that came in through the chat. I've recorded them since we're getting close to time. And there's a lot of more questions that came in from others that Linda says she already has responded to. So we'll make sure that we get those out to folks.
Okay.
I do want to go ahead and transition to some of our end announcements. But everyone, if we could all thank Linda, if you know how to clap react, or if you have your audio on. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
And Tammy, do you want to reshare the presentation and our final announcements before we log off?
You got it. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. All right, so remember I talked to you at the beginning of this presentation that this was a pilot program. It is so important for you to give us your feedback. Tell us what we did wrong. Tell us what we did right. Tell us how we can improve. It's really, really important. So there's the bit link for you. Take a picture of it and then give us some information a little bit later. If you're interested in volunteering for a trainee-led steering committee, that's going to basically influence programming and priorities and give you an incredible experience, please send an email to howdy@capitalcityinnovation.org for more information on that. Whoops, went the wrong way. Well, guys, as a reminder, the next one is August 7th, and we will cover CVs and resumes. Again, here's your link to the event page, and looking forward to seeing you soon. Stay safe. Have a wonderful summer, and we'll see you in August.